When Claire and Jake lost their daughter, the silence between them grew louder than any scream. What began as comfort turned into careful distance, two souls under the same roof, aching alone. But grief doesn't always mean the end. With love buried under pain, truth long overdue, and a flicker of faith they both nearly lost, Claire and Jake must decide. Do they let the thread fray, or do they stitch their hearts back together? Welcome to Story Time with Papa Al. Let's join Claire and Jake in their story of grief.
The house had never been this quiet, not even in the early days when Claire and Jake first moved in and laughed about the echo of their footsteps on hardwood floors. That quiet was full of promise. This one, it was thick with absence. Claire stood at the sink, hands resting on the edge, staring out at the small backyard where the swing still hung from the oak tree. The wind rocked it gently as if someone unseen was playing. She didn't cry anymore. Not often, anyway. The tears had turned into something else, something heavier. A dull ache that lived in her chest and made simple tasks feel monumental. Her hands moved automatically, rinsing the same mug twice, drying it, then setting it on the counter as if she had forgotten what she was doing halfway through. Jake walked into the kitchen behind her, his keys in one hand, his phone in the other. "I've got that thing with the board tonight," he said without looking up. Claire turned, leaning against the sink. "What board?" "The hospital board," he said, glancing up now. "I told you, it's the monthly meeting." "No, you didn't." "I swear I did." He pocketed his phone and gave her a half-hearted shrug. "Maybe you just forgot." She stared at him. That stung more than it should have. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Act like I'm the one losing it." Jake rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking exhausted. "Claire, I didn't mean anything by it." But she was already retreating, folding a dish towel in tight, frustrated motions. "It's fine. Go. Be late for dinner again." He hesitated in the doorway. "It's not like we've really been having dinner together anyway." That stopped her. He didn't mean it cruelly, but it felt cruel. She didn't reply, and he didn't wait. Later that evening, Claire sat alone at the dinner table, picking at lukewarm pasta she made mostly out of habit. Across the table, Lily's booster seat was still buckled to the chair. She had thought of removing it a dozen times in the past 6 months, but always stopped short. It felt too final. Her mother had once said, "Grief doesn't come in waves. It settles, like dust." Claire didn't agree. Grief didn't settle. It clung. It coated everything. Every word, every silence, every memory. The front door clicked around 10:30. Jake didn't say anything as he entered, just set his keys down and went to the fridge. Claire remained in the living room, the soft glow of the TV flickering but offering no distraction. She could hear him getting a glass of water, the clink of ice, the squeak of the fridge door. "Was the meeting good?" she asked without looking away from the screen. "It was fine." A beat of silence. "Did they approve your funding for the pediatric wing?" He hesitated. "Yeah." "Good." More silence. Then Jake spoke, softer this time. "You were the only one who asked about that. Everyone else just wanted numbers." Claire glanced at him. For a moment, their eyes met. She gave a tired smile, the kind that barely touched her lips. "Of course I asked. I know how much that meant to you." Jake nodded, but the connection passed like a breeze. Too light to stay. Later that night, Claire climbed into bed next to Jake. They lay facing opposite directions, their backs just inches apart but worlds away. The lamp on her nightstand cast a golden pool of light on the framed photo she kept there. Lily, 3 years old, all curls and sunshine, holding a dandelion up like it was treasure. Claire reached over and ran a finger across the glass. "I dreamed about her last night," she whispered. Jake didn't respond. For a moment, she thought he might be asleep. She was singing that song from the movie, the one she always asked you to sing with her in the car. Still silence. Claire turned toward him. "Did you hear me?" Jake finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "I hear you." She waited, hoped, but nothing more came. It had been a rare Saturday where everything just clicked. Claire remembered it like a favorite song, each detail sweet, rhythmic, and impossible to forget. They were in the park, Lily bundled in a pink jacket with fleece bunny ears. The sun was warm despite the lingering chill in the air, and Jake was pretending to be a lumbering monster as Lily squealed and ran in crooked circles through the grass. Claire had her phone out, half capturing the moment, half soaking it in. Jake, you're going to fall, she warned, laughing as he pretended to trip over a stick. Monsters never fall, he called, stumbling with exaggerated drama. We faceplant with dignity. Lily giggled so hard she toppled over, rolling in the leaves. Daddy's silly, Claire grinned. Yes, he is. Jake scooped their daughter into his arms, swinging her in the air. She shrieked with joy, arms stretched out like wings. Higher! Again! You're going to make her barf, Claire said, but she was laughing. She'll barf with glory, Jake declared, nuzzling his face into Lily's neck until she kicked her legs, breathless from laughing. They ended up on a picnic blanket with sandwiches and juice boxes. Claire laid back, resting her head on Jake's stomach as Lily sang nonsense songs to a line of ants. Jake ran his fingers gently through Claire's hair. You're glowing, he said. Claire rolled her eyes. You say that every time I don't wear makeup. Because it's true every time. She smiled and reached up, brushing his cheek with her thumb. I like us like this. Jake looked down at her. I wish I could bottle this moment. I don't want to bottle it, she whispered. I want to live it. Over and over. Lily toddled over with something clenched in her fist. Mommy, Daddy, look! She opened her palm to reveal a squished yellow flower, half dandelion, half grass. Claire sat up. Is that for us? Lily nodded with solemn pride. For both, you have to share. Jake took it gently and tucked it behind Claire's ear. Done. Lily beamed, pleased with her diplomacy. Back in the present, Claire sat at her vanity the next morning, brushing her hair. She paused, fingers catching in a curl, and glanced at the tiny pressed flower still taped inside her mirror frame. Faded. Fragile, but still there. She heard the shower shut off. Jake was up. She hadn't even realized he was home all night. Their mornings were like this now. Parallel routines, no touch points. Claire sat on the edge of the bed as he emerged, towel around his waist, hair damp. I was thinking of going to the cemetery today, she said. Jake froze for a second, then resumed toweling off. You don't usually go on Wednesdays? I know, her voice cracked, but I feel like I need to. Jake sat on the edge of the dresser. You want me to come? The question hung in the air. Claire looked up at him, surprised. Yes, she said simply. He nodded. Okay. The cemetery was quiet but not empty. The gravel crunched beneath their shoes as Claire and Jake walked the narrow path. She held a small bouquet of daisies, Lily's favorite. Jake had a single white balloon trailing from his wrist, something he picked up at a gas station without explanation. They hadn't spoken much during the drive. Claire's breath hitched as they reached the small headstone. Pale pink granite. Simple. Inscribed with a butterfly and Lily Grace Holloway. Beloved daughter. Forever our light. Claire knelt and gently set the flowers at the base. Jake remained standing, eyes on the balloon, fingers wrapped tightly around the string. She'd be 4 this month, Claire said quietly. Jake swallowed. Yeah. Silence stretched between them. Claire finally looked up. You never talk about her. Jake flinched. That's not fair. It's true. He stepped forward, crouching beside her. Claire, I think about her every single day. Then say it. Her voice rose with unexpected sharpness. Say her name. Say something. Jake turned toward the headstone. Lily. Claire's hands trembled. You shut me out, Jake. For months. You won't talk about her or about us. You stay at work. You sleep on the edge of the bed like you're afraid of me. You're gone. Jake stared at the ground. I didn't know how to carry it. Do you think I did? Her voice cracked. You think I wanted to keep breathing after she died? Jake stood abruptly, running a hand through his hair. I didn't mean it like that. I needed you, Claire said, standing too now. And you weren't there. You left me alone in that house with her toys and her drawings and the little pink shoes I still can't throw away. He turned on her, eyes burning. And what about me, Claire? You think I didn't need you too? You think I didn't lie awake every single night staring at the ceiling, wondering if I could have done something? Anything different? Claire was crying now. Then why didn't you come to me? Because I didn't want to break you more than you already were. That stunned her. Jake's voice softened. You were barely holding on. You'd go sit in her room for hours. I thought if I added my mess to yours, you'd snap. Claire wiped her cheeks. So instead, we drifted. And now we're strangers. Jake looked at the balloon, then handed it to her. You're not a stranger to me. Claire took it, hesitant. The string was warm from his hand. We used to be partners. We still are, he said. We just forgot how. They stood in silence for a moment. Jake took a deep breath. Claire, I'm sorry. I should have said something. Should have asked how you really were. I was scared and ashamed. She looked up at him, eyes red. Me too. Jake reached out, touching her hand for the first time in what felt like years. Let's try, he said quietly. Not to forget. Not to move on. Just to find each other again. Even if it takes time. Claire clutched his fingers like a lifeline. Okay. She let go of the balloon. It drifted upward, swaying through the branches until it disappeared into the pale blue sky. I miss her, she whispered. Jake pulled her into his arms, holding her tighter than he had in months. So do I, every day. It started with the closet. Claire had gone in to dig out a sweater she hadn't worn in a year. The weather had turned cold again, sudden and sharp, and she was half convinced she'd tossed the thing out during one of her purging phases. The closet was a mess. Boxes stacked precariously, old photo albums, a basket of tangled cords. She muttered to herself, pulling one bin down too quickly, and it fell, crashing to the floor. Jake appeared in the doorway a minute later. Everything okay? Claire sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a mess of fabric and memories. She held up a baby pink hoodie, tiny and worn. She loved this one, Claire said, voice soft. Jake knelt down and took it from her. She called it her snuggly jacket, remember? Claire smiled. She refused to wear anything else if this was clean. Threw a fit when I tried to dress her in that itchy rainbow thing. Jake chuckled. She had opinions. She was 3 going on 30. They sat there for a moment, holding the hoodie between them. Then Jake reached for the nearby bin, still half full. You want to go through this together? Claire looked at him. Yeah, I'd like that. They started pulling items out slowly. A plush duck missing an eye, a construction paper butterfly with uneven wings, a popsicle stick frame with a photo of Lily squinting into the sun, one tooth missing. Claire's hand brushed Jake's. Neither of them pulled away. At the bottom of the bin, they found the storybook Claire used to read to Lily every night, The Big Blue Elephant. Jake opened it and read a line aloud, his voice wobbling slightly. The elephant was sad, but his heart was still big. Claire leaned into his shoulder without thinking. She made me do the voices, remember that? You were better at them than me. Claire looked up at him. She said your elephant sounded like an old man with a sore throat. Jake laughed. It was short, but it was real, and it changed the room. I miss hearing her laugh, he said. Claire nodded. Me too. Then Jake surprised her. I miss yours too. Claire blinked. Jake. He looked into her eyes. You stopped laughing after she died, and I stopped trying to make you. Her throat tightened. I didn't think I was allowed to be happy. Jake placed the book gently aside. Me neither. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Claire touched his face. The first time in ages. Her thumb brushed his cheek, and he leaned into it like a man starved for warmth. Let's stop surviving, she said, her voice a whisper. Let's start living again. He kissed her then, gentle, hesitant, familiar, and she kissed him back. They sat there on the closet floor, the hoodie between them, wrapped in memory and forgiveness. Outside, rain began to fall, slow and steady. But inside, something cracked open, not broken, not shattered, just open. Claire had just finished setting the cutting board on the counter when Jake walked in from the garage, brushing sawdust from his hands. She glanced at him. You hungry? Jake raised an eyebrow. Is that a trap? Claire smirked. No trap, just I thought I'd make that lemon chicken Lily used to like, the one with the little roasted potatoes. Jake smiled, real and unguarded. I haven't had that in forever. She pulled her hair back and opened the fridge. Well, I bought too many lemons. It felt like fate. Jake washed his hands at the sink. You want help? She paused, then nodded. You can chop the rosemary. And not like a barbarian this time. Oh, come on, my chopping is very artistic. It's traumatic. Jake grinned and reached for the knife block. Soon the kitchen smelled like garlic, citrus, and rosemary. Claire moved around with practiced ease, seasoning the chicken and arranging potatoes in a tray, while Jake chopped herbs with exaggerated care. See, he said, holding up a perfectly uniform pile. Refined. Claire gave him a mock round of applause. You'll make someone a lovely prep cook someday. Jake raised an eyebrow. Only if I get hazard pay for working with you? She bumped him with her hip as she reached for the olive oil. He bumped her back, gently. It was lighthearted, easy, the kind of back and forth they hadn't had in so long it felt new again. While the food roasted, they sat at the table with glasses of sparkling water. Claire traced her finger along the condensation on her glass. She used to sit in that chair, she said quietly. Wouldn't eat anything green unless we bribed her. Jake smiled, eyes drifting to the seat. Even then, she'd hide peas in her napkin. Thought we didn't notice. Claire laughed. You used to distract her with ridiculous stories. Remember the one about the broccoli farm that only grew candy? I was desperate. She was a ruthless negotiator. They both laughed, and the sound filled the kitchen like music. Claire looked at him, her smile fading into something softer. I miss this. Jake reached across the table and took her hand. Me too. Dinner was quiet, but not in the old, heavy way. It was peaceful. There was room for memory and for presence, no guilt, no shame. Just the clink of forks, the warmth of roasted garlic, and the occasional smile. Afterward, Jake did the dishes while Claire packed leftovers. When he turned off the sink, she was leaning on the counter, drying her hands on a towel. Jake? Yeah? I'd like to talk about her more, not just when it hurts. I want to remember the good stuff, too. The silly stuff. I think she'd want that. He nodded slowly. I'd like that, too. Claire stepped closer and kissed his cheek. Thank you. They stood there in the glow of the kitchen light. Two people who had once been broken, now slowly, carefully, finding each other again. The beach cottage was small, weathered, and perfect. Claire stood barefoot on the porch, the hem of her jeans rolled up, arms crossed as she watched the waves roll in. The ocean was gray, moody, the wind threading through her hair like fingers. Jake came out behind her with 2 mugs of coffee. He handed one to her without speaking. They stood in silence for a while, sipping, listening. This was the last place we all went together, Claire said eventually. That picture of her with the sandcastle and chocolate on her face? It was right down there. Jake followed her gaze to the shore below. She made me eat one of her sandy, gummy worms? Claire gave a soft laugh. You did it without flinching. I was trying to impress her. I think I failed. She thought you were the coolest man alive, Claire said, her voice catching. You always were. They fell into silence again. Then Jake spoke, low and raw. Claire, we never talked about that day. Claire looked down at her coffee. Her hands were shaking. I know, she said. Jake sat on the porch steps. I think about it constantly, over and over. She sat beside him. It was just a fever, she whispered. Kids get fevers all the time. I told you it was nothing, he said, guilt spilling into every word. I said give it a day. She'd be fine. Claire stared straight ahead, her voice hollow. I believed you because I wanted to. He looked over. If we'd taken her in sooner, Jake, maybe they could have caught it. Claire's breath trembled. And maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe it was already too late. Jake shook his head. I just keep thinking, I should have known. Claire grabbed his hand. She didn't die because we were bad parents. She died because sometimes awful, impossible things happen and we can't stop them. Tears welled in his eyes. But I was her dad. And I was her mom. And we loved her. That's what mattered. That's what she knew. Jake looked at her, and in his eyes was a depth of sorrow that had no words, only shared weight. Claire squeezed his hand. I blamed you, she admitted. Not really, but somewhere deep down. For saying it was nothing. For not being scared when I was. Jake nodded. I blamed myself. And I blamed me, she added. For not pushing harder, for hesitating. They were both crying now. Quiet, aching tears. Jake leaned his forehead against hers. I'm sorry. Claire nodded. Me too. I miss her, he whispered. Claire closed her eyes. I miss her so much it feels like I can't breathe. They held each other there, rocking gently as the wind whipped around them. I want to start over, Claire said. Not forget. Never forget. But build something new. Carry her with us, not behind us. Jake kissed her forehead. Then let's start here. The morning was cool and bright, the kind of morning Lily would have begged to play outside barefoot. Claire stood at the edge of their small backyard, a hand resting on the shovel handle. Jake was beside her, sleeves rolled up, a sapling at his feet. It was a dogwood tree. Claire had chosen it for its white blossoms and the way it stood delicate, yet unyielding like Lily. Jake knelt to dig the hole. Think she would have liked it? She would have named it something ridiculous, Claire said, smiling softly. Like Princess Leafy Pants. Jake chuckled. Or Queen Blossom McTreeface. Claire knelt beside him, pressing her hand to the earth. I want this to be hers, not a memorial. Just a place she can be part of everything still growing. They lowered the sapling into the soil together, hands brushing. As they packed the dirt gently around the roots, Claire caught her breath. We did this before, she said suddenly. Remember? When we planted the herbs outside the kitchen window? Jake looked up. She dumped the whole packet of basil seeds and said she was helping it be extra basil-y. Claire laughed, blinking back tears. It never stopped growing wild after that. Jake stood and offered his hand to help her up. She took it without hesitation. When the tree was steady, they stepped back. Claire reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out something small, a silver butterfly charm on a ribbon. One of Lily's favorites from a birthday gift. She tied it to the bottom branch gently. I want to sit out here sometimes, she said. Talk to her, or just be. Jake nodded. Then we will. They stood in silence, arms wrapped around each other, watching the tree sway softly in the morning breeze. Jake kissed the side of her head. You know, I still love you. Claire smiled and leaned into him. I never stopped. He tightened his hold on her. I don't want to waste any more time. Not one more day pretending I'm fine when I'm not. Not one more day of being afraid to love you the way I used to. Claire turned to face him fully. Then don't. Let's start again, right here. With the tree. With each other. They kissed, not as two broken people, but as two whole ones who had walked through hell and come out holding hands. Epilogue, 1 year later, the tree had grown. Each spring, it bloomed with delicate white flowers, and each bloom felt like a whisper from the past, gentle and kind. Claire sat on the back step, coffee in hand, while Jake read the newspaper beside her. The charm still hung on the branch, catching the light. There were hard days, yes. Grief still came and went like the tide. But now it had room to exist alongside joy, not instead of it. Lily's laughter still echoed in the spaces between sentences, in the smell of lemons, in a favorite bedtime story brought back to life. Claire reached over and laced her fingers through Jake's. They had found each other again, not in spite of the pain, but because they chose to walk through it together. And love, that fragile, stubborn thing, had grown back, stronger than ever.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Story Time with Papa Owl. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe.